joins me now. He's a former CIA Deputy Division Chief for Korea. So, Bruce, thank you so much for being with me. And as we're learning, as Ryan was just reporting out from the Pentagon, that it was a probable two-stage intercontinental ballistic missile. Explain to us what that means, how there was a second stage booster, and how that's significant.
Well, any kind of more complicated missile, such as a second or third stage, if it's successful, shows that North Korea has made technological developments. In the past, North Korea has had other 2 or 3 stage missiles, such as the Unha that they've launched, or Taepodong that they've launched in the past. What's particularly significant about this is, although the actual range was short, it was lofted to a very high trajectory, and that experts are assessing that had it been flown on a normal trajectory, it could have gone perhaps 6,700 kilometers. Anything over 5,500 kilometers is considered an ICBM. And although 6,700 kilometers may be only able to reach Alaska, that's likely not the full range of the missile, maybe just this flight.
And I should point out that one of the reasons we wanted to talk to you is that you were just not too long ago over there. When were you over there?
Well, I met with North Korean officials last month in Sweden, where they emphasized that denuclearization is totally off the table. There's nothing that that's South Korea or the U.S. can offer. And then they concluded with, accept us as a nuclear state, willing to either talk about a peace treaty or fight.
Wow. We'll get to options in a second, but with the news today, Bruce, do you think this officially puts the U.S. on notice that they are capable, could be capable, of hitting U.S. mainland?
Oh, certainly. The 4 U.S. 4-star generals in the past have said that they either assume or have to assume for planning purposes that North Korea already has the capability of hitting the United States with a nuclear weapon. They have another missile that would be launched from a fixed site. This is a road mobile, the launch yesterday. That fixed site, the missile, the Unha or Taepodong 3, that's estimated to have a range of 10,000 or even 13,000 kilometers, which is all the way down to Miami. So they've had the capability in the past, but from a fixed site, we still don't know whether they've been able to miniaturize and mount a warhead to these longer range missiles.
But that's the thing. But that's the thing, right? I mean, it's one thing to have a missile with this kind of range. It's another to actually miniaturize a nuclear warhead and attach it. I mean, that's the fear, right? That's the question. When that is a real possibility.
Well, experts assume or assess that the Nodong, a medium-range ballistic missile, is already nuclear capable, and that means South Korea and Japan are under a nuclear threat today. North Korea's had successes in a submarine-launched ballistic missile, 2 different intermediate-range missiles that can hit Guam, several different ICBMs that they're working on. So if those aren't nuclear capable yet, we know that they're on that path of development. But certainly South Korea and Japan are under a nuclear threat today.
Well, despite what you're saying, I know that you know that the President of the United States has said that an ICBM wouldn't happen. Today, his response to this missile was questioning Kim Jong-un, essentially saying, does this guy have anything better to do with his life? And again, you having just recently talked to North Koreans, do you think, A, Bruce, that he's still sort of coming to grips with North Korea's intentions? And B, what do you think Kim Jong-un is thinking with this sort of taunt from the president?
There's always been a lot of, I think, disagreement about North Korea's actual capabilities, and we have to make certain assumptions even within the intelligence community. So again, we may not know where they are on the development path, but we certainly know what their objectives are. And the president can say it won't happen, but obviously this one did. This test doesn't mean that it's actually deployable, but clearly they're going to be doing continuing tests. We also expect another nuclear test, which would be their 6th, which would be providing additional progress on their nuclear weapon systems. So I think the president and others are always trying to consider what options we have. Some have suggested a preemptive attack to prevent North Korea from completing development of the ICBM. That would significantly raise the risk of an all-out war on the peninsula. Some have advocated a return to diplomacy, but we've had 8 international agreements with North Korea, all failed. South Korea has tried diplomacy repeatedly. They have 240 agreements with the North.
So what are our options? What are U.S. options moving forward?
Right. Well, certainly we need to make sure that ourselves and our allies are sufficiently defended against the spectrum of the North Korean military threat. And that includes conventional forces as well as a nuclear umbrella guarantee to our allies, and also ballistic missile defense. That's the THAAD missile defense system the U.S. wants to deploy in South Korea, as well as having sufficient ground-based interceptors in Alaska and Hawaii, as well as reviewing the strategic missile defense systems President Obama cut. But also we need to increase the pressure. There's a lot of misperceptions about that North Korea, as President Obama said, is the most heavily sanctioned, the most cut-off nation on earth. He's flat out wrong. The U.S. has been holding back on a number of sanctions. And only last week, the U.S. sanctioned a Chinese bank, and we know there's evidence for a lot more.
Right. In talking with the North Koreans just last month, Bruce, what else did you take away from that you can share?
Right, that they were just very emphatic in that they were not interested in denuclearizing or returning to negotiations. And that when we tried to offer different options or suggest options, they became irritated. They just said, stop thinking of different options. We are a nuclear state. And they were much more self-assured, even cockier, given the recent successes in their nuclear and missile tests.
Mm-hmm. Just curious, did they say anything about Otto Warmbier or the other Americans who are over there?
Well, our meetings were in between times that State Department official Joe Ewan was meeting with them. We didn't know that at the time, but certainly in the meeting we raised not only Mr. Warmbier but the other 3 American detainees, and pointed out that they were on trumped-up charges, that they were excessive punishments, and that if North Korea wanted to improve the atmosphere for any kind of negotiations, that releasing them would certainly improve the atmosphere.
Did they appear open to that?
I think they took it on board, but it didn't seem to gain any traction.
Okay. Bruce Klingner, thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Happy 4th of July to you.
Happy 4th.
Thank you. Coming up next, why Vladimir Putin and not President Trump may be the one bringing up election